Nora Whitmore kept her hands folded tight in her lap, trying to steady her breathing. She did not feel ready for this moment or this town or this new life. She had come west for safety and a future, but the ground under her feet still felt uncertain. She told herself to stay calm, but her heart kept pushing harder against her ribs. Something was wrong. She could feel it. She could not name it yet, but the fear was there, sitting heavy behind her ribs. Cole Barrett sat beside her at the long table, his presence warm and steady. He did not say much, but the quiet strength in his voice earlier had helped her breathe a little easier. Now he watched the doorway with the alert stillness of a man who had learned to expect trouble. He was trying to protect her even before he fully knew her. That alone made her chest tighten. The door opened. Nora's breath caught. A man walked in with slow, measured steps, wearing the dark coat of a territorial judge. The moment she saw his face, the room spun. Her fingers dug into Cole's hand under the table. She knew that man. She knew him too well. It was Charles Whitfield, the man who had taken her father's money, the man who had vanished the night her life had collapsed. Older now, lines deeper, hair graying at the temples, but the same cold eyes. The same careful smile that hid too many sins. Nora felt the color drain from her face. Her pulse roared in her ears. She could not breathe. Whitfield's gaze swept the courtroom, polite and bored, until it reached her. His eyes widened for one heartbeat. Fear flickered there, actual fear. Then he buried it under a judge's calm mask. Cole leaned close. His voice was quiet. "You all right?" She tried to speak, but her throat closed. What could she say? Who would believe her if she stood up and named this judge a thief? She was only a mail-order bride with nothing to her name. He was the law. "I am fine," she whispered. But she was not fine. She felt trapped between past and present, unable to run, unable to fight, forced to sit still while the man who ruined her family took the highest seat in the room. The hearing began. The railroad's lawyers stood first. They spoke with smooth voices, waving letters and contracts and claims. They said Cole's older brother had been eager to sell land for a new rail line. They said the deal should stand even after his death. They said the ranch belonged to the railroad now. Nora listened with a sick feeling. She knew what these men wanted. She knew the way powerful people twisted truth until it fit their plans. When Mr. Frost, Cole's lawyer, rose to speak, the air seemed to sharpen. He was calm but firm. He showed the unsigned letter where the brother had refused the offer. He revealed the will that left the ranch to Cole alone. He argued with clear, steady strength that the railroad had no claim, no agreement, no right to take land that had belonged to the Barrett family for generations. Whitfield listened in silence. His face showed nothing, but Nora felt watched, judged, measured, as if he was trying to decide whether she would stay quiet or bring his past into the light. When Cole took the stand, Nora held her breath. He answered every question with honest, simple truth. He spoke of his brother, the ranch, the work they shared, the land they both loved. But the railroad's lawyer tried to break him, tried to paint him as unfit, tried to twist his heritage into a weapon. Cole never raised his voice, never lost control. Nora felt pride swell warm inside her. This was a man who did not shake under pressure. Then it was her turn. Nora's legs felt weak as she stood. The room felt too large, too bright. She tried not to look at Whitfield, but she could feel his gaze like a hand on her shoulder. Frost asked simple questions. She answered each one with steady breath and calm tone. She spoke of the letters she found, the handwriting she recognized, the truth she had pieced together. Then the railroad's lawyer rose with a smile that chilled her. He twisted her past, her poverty, her lost security. He tried to turn her into a grasping woman chasing money. He tried to shame her for caring about Cole. He tried to make her voice small. Nora lifted her chin. "I told the truth," she said. "My feelings do not change the truth." A ripple moved through the spectators. She saw Cole's hand tighten on the arm of his chair, saw something like relief in his eyes. She had not broken. She had not let them crush her. By the time she stepped down, her heart was trembling, but she had stood firm. She had done what needed doing. She had defended the man who had given her shelter and dignity when she had arrived with nothing. The closing arguments ended. The judge called a recess. The courtroom emptied like water draining from a basin. Nora slipped into the quiet hallway, needing air, needing distance. But she froze as a shadow stepped into her path. Whitfield. He looked older, weary, haunted. She saw guilt move across his face like a storm. "Miss Whitmore," he said softly, "you recognized me." Nora's anger rose like heat from the earth. "You stole from my father. You ruined him." Whitfield flinched. "Yes, and I have carried that shame every day." But Nora was not here for his sorrow. She steadied her voice. "Judge the case fairly. Nothing more. Nothing less." Whitfield studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I will." She walked away from him without another word, her heart still hammering, her thoughts a tangle of fear and strange, rising hope. The decision was coming, and with it, the shape of their future. The courtroom was silent when everyone returned, the kind of silence that presses on the chest. Nora kept her hands folded to stop them from shaking. Cole sat beside her, steady as always, but she felt the tension running through him like a taut rope. This moment would decide everything: their home, their future, their safety. All of it hung on the words of a man she once feared more than anyone alive. Judge Whitfield entered with calm steps. His face was unreadable. Nora searched for any hint, any clue, but he guarded his expression like a locked door. She felt her throat tighten. Her father never got justice, would she? Whitfield cleared his throat and began. He spoke of the evidence, the letters, the will, the timing. Every point Frosted fought for. Nora felt herself leaning forward slightly, each word pulling her closer. Then the pause came, a long, heavy pause that made her heart tremble. Finally, Whitfield looked up. "There is not enough proof of any agreement between the railroad and the late Mr. Barrett," Nora gasped. She heard Cole exhale beside her, a rough breath he had been holding too long. "Therefore, the court rules in favor of the defendant, Cole Barrett." For one heartbeat, the room froze. Then, noise exploded. Cheers, shouts, relief, anger from the railroad men. Frost grinning like a man who had wrestled down a storm and won. Cole stood and pulled Nora into his arms, lifting her off the ground with a force that made her breath catch. "We did it," he murmured against her hair. "Nora, we won." She held on tight, feeling the weight slide off her shoulders, feeling like she could breathe again. For the first time since stepping off that stagecoach, she felt safe. But safety never lasted long in the West. As they stepped outside into the sunlight, Frost shook Cole's hand firmly. "Congratulations. The ranch is yours without question." Nora thanked him, grateful down to her bones. But as she looked across the street, she saw a familiar figure in a dark coat. Albert Peyton, the railroad agent. He watched them with a thin smile, one that did not reach his eyes. Nora's stomach tightened. Men like him did not lose gracefully. Cole followed her gaze, his jaw hardened. "Ignore him. He can't touch us now." But Nora wasn't so sure. That afternoon, they rode the wagon back toward Barrett Ranch. Cole's shoulders were still tense despite the victory. Nora touched his arm gently. "What's worrying you?" He hesitated before answering. "Winning in court is one thing. Keeping the ranch running is another. I still need to move cattle to market, and if trouble comes—" He didn't finish. He didn't need to. She understood. When they reached the ranch, the hands came running. Miguel, Tommy, Jed. All shouting questions, all relieved. They lifted Nora down as if she were made of something bright and lucky. She laughed through her exhaustion. But as evening settled across the land, Nora stepped outside alone for a breath of cool air. Sunset painted the sky in soft oranges. The ranch looked peaceful, steady, alive. That was when Cole joined her. He stood close enough that she felt his warmth at her shoulder. "You were brave today," he said quietly. "Brave?" in that courtroom. Brave when they tried to twist your words. I'll never forget that. Her chest warmed at the softness in his voice. I only told the truth. You did more than that. You stood with me. You didn't have to. She turned toward him. His eyes were gentle, almost hopeful. She felt something shift inside her, a slow, certain pull she wasn't sure she had words for. Before she could answer, the sound of horses echoed in the distance. Both of them turned sharply. A rider was approaching fast, dust trailing behind. Cole stepped in front of Nora without thinking. Miguel met the rider first. The young man slid from the saddle, breathless. Boss, I saw Albert Peyton in town. He was talking to some men, rough ones. He didn't look finished with you. Cole's jaw tightened. Nora felt her stomach knot. He's coming after the ranch in another way, she said softly. Cole turned to her, eyes steady. Let him try. He'll find out this land isn't his for the taking, not while I'm here. His voice was low and certain, the voice of a man who had built his life with his own hands, the voice of a man who protected what he loved. Nora felt the truth of it settle warm inside her. The danger wasn't gone, but neither was her courage. She had learned something important today. She wasn't alone. Not anymore. Cole took her hand. Come inside. We'll plan for whatever comes next. Nora followed him into the warm light of the home they were fighting for. Outside, the sun dipped behind the ridge. The long shadows stretched across the land. Danger was coming. But so was love. The night settled heavy over the ranch, the kind of darkness that pressed against the windows and made every sound sharper. Nora lay awake on the small bed in the spare room, staring at the ceiling. Sleep would not come. Her mind kept replaying the way Albert Peyton watched them outside the courthouse. Men like him did not accept defeat. They found another way in. A soft knock sounded. Nora sat up quickly. The door cracked open and Cole stepped inside. His shoulders filled the space as if the room were too small to hold him. He rubbed a hand across his jaw, weary from the long day. Couldn't sleep either, he said. She nodded. The house felt too still, too quiet, like the land itself was waiting. Cole sat on the edge of her bed, careful not to sit too close. He wasn't a man who pushed. He wasn't a man who assumed. He always gave her room to breathe. I meant what I said earlier, he told her. We'll handle whatever comes. Together. The word together warmed her chest. She had spent so much of her life standing alone. Now she wasn't sure how to hold the weight of someone standing with her. Cole hesitated, as if measuring his next words. I know today brought back things you'd rather forget. Her breath caught. He had noticed. He had seen the fear she tried to hide. He always saw more than she said out loud. Nora lowered her voice. Some pasts don't stay buried. Cole's expression softened. Maybe not, but you're stronger than you think. Before she could answer, a sudden howl cut through the darkness. It was close. Too close. Cole stood at once, eyes sharp. Wolves. Nora felt her pulse spike. The ranch hands ran outside, boots thudding across the yard, lanterns flaring to life. Cole grabbed his coat and rifle. Stay inside, Nora. No. The word left her before she thought it through. I can help. He turned toward her, surprised, but he didn't argue. He just nodded once. Stay behind me. They stepped out into the cold night air. The moon hung like a thin blade above the ridge. Shadows moved near the cattle pen. Low growls rolled across the grass. Jed fired a warning shot. The wolves scattered for a moment but circled back, driven by hunger and the scent of calves. Cole moved forward with calm control, every step steady. Nora stayed close behind him, gripping the lantern so tight her knuckles ached. She had never been this near to danger. But she didn't run. Not tonight. Miguel shouted from the other side of the pen. They're trying to drive the herd. He sounded afraid. Cole called back. Hold your line. Don't waste shots. The largest wolf lunged at the fence. Cole raised his rifle and fired once. The crack echoed across the land. The wolf fell. The others scattered at last, disappearing into the trees. Silence returned in jagged pieces. Nora felt her breath shaking as she lowered the lantern. Cole turned to her, checking her face with soft eyes. "You did good," he said. "You stood your ground. I was scared. Course you were. Being scared doesn't mean you run." His voice was warm, proud. Something in her chest loosened. She didn't know she needed his approval until she felt it. Back inside, the hands settled in the bunkhouse. The danger had passed, but adrenaline still hummed under Nora's skin. She followed Cole into the kitchen. The lantern light cast golden shadows across the walls. Cole poured water into a tin cup and handed it to her. His fingers brushed hers. Her pulse jumped. "You don't give yourself enough credit, Nora." She looked down at the cup. "You don't know me well enough to say that." He stepped a little closer. "I know you came west to build a life after losing everything. I know you faced a judge who wronged your family, and you didn't bend. And I know tonight you followed me into danger without thinking twice." Her breath caught. She had not expected this. She had not expected him to see her so clearly. Cole lowered his voice. "You're stronger than you believe." Before she could answer, the front door banged open. Jed rushed in, breathless. "Boss, you need to see this." Cole's jaw tightened. "What now?" Jed motioned toward the barn. "You better come quick." Nora followed Cole outside, her heart sinking with each step. The lanterns threw shaky circles of light across the yard. When they reached the barn, Cole stopped cold. Someone had slashed the water barrels. Every one of them. Fresh water poured into the dirt, soaking the ground. In this dry land, water was life, and someone had taken it from them. Cole's voice was low, dangerous. Peyton's men. Nora felt fear rise sharp inside her. Cole looked at the spilled water, then at the dark horizon. This wasn't wolves. This was a warning. He turned toward Nora, his eyes steady, his jaw set. "Stay close to me," he said. "The real fight hasn't even started." Dawn crept over the ranch in pale light, soft at first, then sharp enough to show every sign of what had been done. The broken barrels, the wet earth, the hoofprints that led off toward the canyon trail. Nora stood beside Cole, watching him survey the damage. His face was calm, but his eyes held a storm. Someone had come in the night with a clear message. This land wasn't safe. Not yet. Cole crouched to study the tracks. 4 horses, moving fast. He rose slowly, wiping dirt from his hands. Peyton sent them. He paused, then added in a quiet tone that carried more danger than shouting. "And he'll send more." Nora felt the worry settle in her stomach. Most men would take the court's loss and walk away. Peyton wasn't that kind of man. He wanted power. He wanted the railroad. And he hated losing to folks like Cole. Miguel joined him, hat in hand. "Boss, we don't have enough barrels left for the week. Watering the herd will be tight." Cole nodded. "Then we'll have to work smarter." Nora watched him take charge with that steady confidence she was coming to know well. This was a man who didn't break under pressure. A man who had carried responsibility since boyhood. A man who would protect everything he cared for, even if it cost him. Inside the house, Nora brewed coffee for the hands. Her hands shook a little as she poured, but she didn't spill a drop. The weight of fear pressed on her like it once had back home. Except this time she wasn't facing it alone. Cole stepped in quietly behind her. "You don't have to do all this." She looked over her shoulder. "It helps me think." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "That makes 2 of us." They shared a small smile, soft and easy. It surprised her how natural it felt. Later that morning, Cole saddled 2 horses. "You're riding with me today." Nora blinked. "Me? Out there? Why?" Cole tightened the cinch. "Because I need you to see the land you helped save. And because you need to know what we're fighting for." A warmth moved through her chest. She didn't argue. They rode out across the open fields. The ranch spread wide under the rising sun, golden and quiet. The air smelled of grass and dust. The horses moved steady beneath them. Nora breathed in slowly. The world felt large, but somehow less heavy. Cole kept close. He pointed out the creek that fed their cattle, the ridge where storms came in fast, the meadow where his brother once worked every spring. His voice softened when he spoke of him. Nora listened, feeling each piece settle into place like a map unfolding. When they stopped near an old cottonwood, Cole dismounted and offered his hand. Nora took it. His touch was warm and sure. They stood in the shade, the wind tugging at her hair. "I know this isn't the life you expected," Cole said. "You came looking for a gentleman. You didn't get one." She shook her head. "You've been kinder than most gentlemen I've known." Something shifted in his expression. A quiet hope, a bit of uncertainty. A man who had lost plenty but still wanted to give more. Before either of them could say another word, gunfire cracked in the distance. Cole reacted instantly. "Down!" He pulled Nora behind the tree just as another shot echoed across the valley. Dust kicked up near her boots. Nora's heart beat so loud it drowned the wind. Cole peeked around the trunk. 2 riders on the ridge. He cursed under his breath. Peyton's men. The riders fired again. Cole aimed, but they ducked behind rocks. Minutes stretched long and thin. Nora stayed pressed to the cottonwood, trying to steady her breath. This wasn't like the wolves. This was different. This was men choosing violence. When the riders retreated over the ridge, Cole lowered his rifle, jaw clenched. "You all right?" She nodded, though her legs trembled. He brushed dust from her sleeve with surprising gentleness. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have brought you out here today." She lifted her chin. "I'm glad you did. You showed me the land you love. And I saw why you won't let it be taken." He stared at her, as if he was seeing someone new, someone stronger than he expected. They rode back slowly. Cole stayed close, watchful, protective. Nora could feel his attention on her every few minutes, making sure she was steady. It warmed her more than the sun on her shoulders. When they reached the ranch, the hands swarmed with questions. Cole held up a hand. "We're fine. But tell everyone to stay sharp. This isn't over." Nora slipped into the house, feeling the day settle in her bones. She poured water into a basin and splashed her face. The cold steadied her. She had come west, hoping for a safe place to land. Instead, she found danger on every side. Yet she felt stronger than she had in years. Maybe it was the wide sky. Maybe it was Cole Barrett. Maybe it was both. As evening fell, Cole found her on the porch. "You handled yourself today," he said. "Most folks would have fallen apart. But you didn't." She looked out at the darkening sky. "Maybe I'm tired of running." Cole's voice dipped low. "Then stay." Her breath caught. "Stay with me," he added. "At the ranch, where I can keep you safe." Her heart pushed hard against her ribs. She wanted safety. She wanted belonging. She wanted a place where she wasn't alone. Before she could answer, hoofbeats thundered toward the house. A rider galloped into the yard, waving frantically. "Boss!" Miguel shouted. "Peyton's men were spotted near the north fence. They're gathering." Cole's eyes hardened. He turned to Nora. "Go inside. Lock the doors." She didn't move. Cole stepped closer, voice soft but firm. "Nora, please." She nodded slowly. Trouble was coming. And this time, it would not pass in the night. Nora stood at the kitchen window, watching Cole ride toward the north fence, with the ranch hands close behind him. The dust trail rose behind their horses like a warning written across the sky. Her breath trembled as she pressed a hand to the glass. She wanted to run after him. She wanted to stand beside him the way she had in the courtroom. But this fight carried real danger, and Cole had asked her to stay safe. The house felt too quiet, too small. The ticking of the old clock sounded louder than it should. Nora moved from room to room, trying to busy herself, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She set a pot on the stove, then lifted it back off. She folded a blanket, then unfolded it. She hated this helpless feeling. She had lived with fear before, but never like this. Not fear for herself. Fear for someone she cared for. Outside, the sun dropped lower, turning the sky a coppery gold. Nora stepped onto the porch despite Cole's warning. The air smelled of dry earth and the faint smoke rising from the bunkhouse chimney. She strained to hear anything from the north fence. Shouts, gunfire, horses, anything. Minutes crawled by. Then she heard it, distant yelling carried by the wind. Her stomach knotted. She hurried down the steps, moving toward the barn, not thinking clearly, only knowing she couldn't stay still. Jed sprinted toward her from the corral. "Miss Nora, get inside!" They spotted movement near the ridge. The boss is outnumbered. Her breath hitched. "How many?" Jed shook his head. 6. Maybe 7. Fear chilled her legs, but something else rose behind it. The same strength she'd felt in the courtroom. The same steadiness she found when Cole stood beside her under that cottonwood tree. Running back inside would not change a thing. Cole needed her clear, focused, ready. She lifted her chin. "What can I do?" Jed blinked, surprised, then nodded. "Bring the spare ammunition. And lanterns. They'll need light coming back." She ran. Inside the barn, she found the crate of shells and grabbed 2 lanterns. Her hands moved fast, without clumsiness or doubt. She wasn't powerless. Not tonight. By the time she reached the porch again, hoofbeats thundered in the distance. Nora froze, clutching the crate to her chest. Shapes appeared through the dust. Cole and the ranch hands, galloping hard, pushing their horses to the limit. But they weren't alone. 3 riders followed close behind, guns flashing in the dying light. Nora's breath stopped. Cole shouted, "Get down!" She dropped behind a barrel as bullets cut through the yard, splintering wood, throwing dust. She covered her head. The shots came fast, chaotic, echoing off the barn walls. Then Cole and the hands swung around in a sharp arc, forming a line between her and the attackers. Miguel fired first, hitting one rider's shoulder. The man toppled from his saddle. Another rider tried to circle wide, but Cole met him head-on. His rifle cracked once. The man fell. The last rider turned his horse, fleeing into the darkening land. Silence followed, long and heavy. Nora rose shakily, her knees weak. Cole dismounted, breath rough, sweat streaking dust across his temples. He strode toward her without a word and pulled her into his arms. She didn't fight it. She let herself sink into him, breathing in the scent of dust and leather and something steady that wrapped around her heart. "You all right?" he murmured. She nodded against his chest. "Are you?" He let out a rough breath. "I am now." Nora stepped back, studying his face. His jaw was tight, his eyes still sharp from the fight. She ran her thumb across a scrape on his cheek. He caught her hand gently. He tried to smile. "I told you to stay inside. And I told you I can help." They stared at each other in the soft dusk, something unspoken passing between them. Something warm. Something steadying. Jed approached. "Boss, Peyton's men won't back off." "They're desperate." Cole nodded. "I know." He turned to Nora. "And I need you to hear something." Her heart fluttered. "Yes." He swallowed hard. "I can keep this ranch running. I can fight for it. But I can't do it alone. I need someone who stands beside me. Someone who believes in me. Someone like you." Nora's breath caught. "Cole." He stepped closer, voice low and honest. "You came here expecting a gentleman. You got a cowboy who works with his hands and lives rough and makes mistakes. But I'll protect what we build. I'll protect you, if you'll stay." She looked up at him, seeing the truth in his eyes. The fear, the hope, the longing. She felt the answer forming in her chest before she spoke it. "I'm not leaving," she whispered. "Not now." Not ever. Cole closed his eyes as if the weight finally lifted. Good, because we have one more fight to win. A flicker of unease ran through her. What do you mean? Cole turned toward the north field, where the land dipped into the low valley. Peyton won't stop until he forces me out. We're ending this tonight. Nora stared at the shadowed horizon. The final clash was coming. She felt fear, yes, but also a strange steadiness. She slipped her hand into Cole's. "Whatever happens," she said softly, "we face it together." He squeezed her hand firmly. Always. The sky darkened, the wind stilled. And, somewhere in the far distance, a lone coyote cried. The last threat was coming, and this time, they were ready for it. Night settled over the valley like a heavy blanket, thick and unmoving. The sky held no moon, only a stretch of deep black that swallowed the land. Cole stood at the edge of the porch with his rifle across his arm, watching the dark horizon. Nora came to stand beside him, her hands clasped tight in front of her skirt. She didn't speak. She knew he needed a moment to think. She also knew he didn't want to take this last step alone. Cole looked at her, the lines around his eyes soft in the lantern glow. "You sure you want to be here for this?" She nodded. "I told you. We face it together." A long breath left his chest. He reached out and brushed her hand with his fingers. It wasn't a full touch, just a small moment, but it steadied him more than any weapon ever had. Footsteps approached from behind. Miguel, Tommy, and Jed came up the porch stairs with quiet determination. They had saddled the fastest horses. They carried the last of the ammunition. They were ready. Cole turned to them and nodded. "We end it tonight. No more waiting." They rode out into the valley. Nora stayed on the porch until the last rider vanished into the dark. She held her breath and whispered a small prayer she had not spoken in years. "Come home safe." The quiet house pressed around her. Every creak made her jump. Every gust of wind felt like a warning. She paced the kitchen, then the front room, then returned to the porch. Minutes stretched long and thin. She scanned the horizon again and again, hoping, pleading. Then the first gunshot cracked through the night. Nora flinched, gripping the porch rail. Another shot rang out, and another. Echoes rolled across the valley like thunder. She pressed a hand to her mouth as fear swept through her. She couldn't see anything. She could only listen. The fight was happening somewhere in the low ravine, where the land dipped, and shadows hid everything. Cole had planned it that way. Use the terrain. Use the dark. Don't fight on their terms. But Nora hated not being able to see him. A sudden scream tore through the night. Not Cole's voice. A stranger's. Then a horse's panicked whinny. Then silence. Nora stood frozen. "Please be all right. Please." Finally, hoofbeats sounded in the distance. Fast. Hard. Urgent. She ran down the steps as riders emerged from the shadows. Cole led them, riding hard but upright. Relief burst through her. Miguel and Jed followed close behind. Tommy brought up the rear, bruised but still holding on. They slowed at the house. Nora rushed to Cole, gripping his arm. "You're hurt!" He wiped blood from his brow with the back of his hand. "Not mine. Someone else's." Miguel slid off his horse. "Peyton's men ran when two of Oolsum got hit. They won't be coming back tonight. Maybe not ever." Cole glanced at the dark ridge. "This land is safe. For now." Nora threw her arms around him before she fully thought it through. He stiffened in surprise, then wrapped his arms around her with a gentleness that made her breath tremble. The world seemed to settle in that one moment. Inside the house, the men rested while Nora cleaned Cole's small cuts. He didn't flinch. Not once. He watched her with a quiet intensity that made her heart race. When she finished, he caught her wrist gently. "Nora," he said softly, "I've been thinking about something for a long time." She met his eyes. Her pulse fluttered. "Yes." Cole stood slowly, as if the moment needed that space. He stepped close enough. She felt his breath warm her cheek. You came here expecting a gentleman. You got a rough rancher who works sunup to sundown and says the wrong thing half the time. But you also got someone who cares for you. Someone who'd stand in front of any danger if it meant you'd be safe. Her throat tightened. Cole. He took her hand in both of his. Stay here with me, as my wife. The words hit her full in the heart. She had never imagined a proposal like this. Not one wrapped in dust and danger and steady devotion. Not one built on trust instead of charm. She swallowed hard, tears rising. I will, she whispered. Yes, yes, I'll marry you. A quiet breath escaped him. His forehead rested against hers for a moment, gentle and sure. Then he pulled back and touched her cheek with rough fingers that felt softer than any silk. 2 days later, with the valley washed in warm afternoon light, they stood near the porch while the preacher from the next town read the vows. The ranch hands gathered close, hats in hand, smiles easy. Nora's dress was simple. Cole's shirt was clean but worn. It was perfect. With this ring, I wed you, Cole said quietly. His voice shook once. I promise you safety. I promise you peace. And I promise I'll stand beside you as long as I breathe. Nora slid the ring onto his hand. And I promise to choose you. Every day. She felt tears slip down her cheeks. You didn't have to be a gentleman for me to love you. You just had to be you. The preacher smiled. Then I now pronounce you husband and wife. Cole leaned in and kissed her. Gentle, careful, full of the kind of love that grows slow and deep. The kind that lasts. When they pulled apart, the ranch hands cheered. Nora laughed softly, pressing her forehead to Cole's chest. He held her close. Welcome home, he murmured. The land around them glowed under the fading sun. The danger had passed, the fight was over, and the future, warm and steady, waited right in front of them. They had built something together, something worth protecting, something worth keeping. And it was only the beginning. If this tale touched your heart tonight, I'd be honored to have you join our little frontier family here. Your subscription helps keep these Wild West stories alive, and it means more to me than you know. If you'd like to hear more journeys of danger, love, and second chances out on the frontier, just hit that subscribe button before you ride out. Thank you for spending your time with me, partner. I'll see you in the next story.